Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core studio. Welcome to the show. So there have been a lot of exciting spoilers during this spoiler season for Aetherdrift, and there are a lot of huge winners, some commanders out there and deck types out there that are just absolutely over the moon with some of the new toys that they have. So on this episode, I'm going to be breaking those down for you. And you very well might have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 decks that you're like, yeah, let's get some upgrades for that. Right about, well, I was going to say now, but when this set comes up, let's jump into it. So first up, Mind Spring Merfolk. This one might be very obvious, but actually the deck recommendation is in the name. Merfolk. A 1/1 Merfolk wizard for a single blue mana. Exhausted for X blue. Tap, draw X cards, get a counter on each Merfolk creature you control. This is absolutely massive, obviously, for Merfolk strategies. A great early low to the ground play. Again, just a single mana that also has a lot of potential to draw you a ton of cards and, of course, pump your entire team as well. So yeah, when it comes to Merfolk commanders, just an example, Hackball the Surging Soul is a very popular one. I believe the most popular one actually out there. A 3/3 for 4 mana in Simic. At the beginning of combat on your turn, each Merfolk creature control explores. So again, that is massive to get out low to the ground early Merfolk so that you can get a lot of value out of them. Again, every single combat. On top of that, when it's attacks, get a land for your hand on the battlefield if you don't draw a card. Yeah, I mean, obviously that can help with the exploring, but of course, yes, being able to utilize your giant, like, Brain Geyser, essentially, ability on your brand new Merfolk to draw a bunch of cards, that can get you a lot of cards to actually get lands into play. Simic things, right? Moving on, March of the World Ooze, a really cool, awesome, brand new, cool card that does have a lot of potential. I mean, Ooze Tribal, absolutely, but I'm not going to bring up that one. I'll bring up a different kind of strategy. Enchant for 6 mana in green. Creature control base power, time to 6/6 and our Ooze additional types. On top of that, whenever opponent casts a spell, if it's not their turn, you create a 3/3 green elf and creature token. So this punishes opponents for playing outside of their own turn by giving you, again, would be 3/3s, but basically 6/6s while this is in play. And on top of that, and perhaps more importantly, yeah, it pumps your entire team. So of course, go wide strategies can utilize it, but I'm also going to highlight one that you might not have thought about. Power matter strategies matter as well with this. Marwyn the Nurturer, definitely a good example of that. A 1/1 Elf Druid for 3 mana in green. Whenever another elf you control enters, you get a counter on it, and you tap that amount of green equal to Marwyn's power. By adjusting the base power of this one, again, you are basically adding an additional 5 mana every single time you tap that. So essentially being able to say, you know what, I am going to be, tapping for 5 extra mana while also pumping my entire team. Again, if I have more elves in play, usually those are low to the ground, so now they're just 6/6 ooze elves. And then also on top of that, well, making some elephants every single time your opponents cast things. So yeah, this is definitely a card that can benefit Power Matters, can also benefit, of course, go wide strategies, a lot of things. Next up, though, Count on Luck. Enchant for 3 mana in red. Beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library and play that card this turn. This is a card that, of course, can just help you out in mono red if you need some extra, I was going to say card draw, but impulse draw. Where this really helps you out, again, is commanders that benefit from impulse and casting things from outside your hand. Exile as well. Prosper Tomebond, obviously a very popular commander and a very, 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 very good one, and one that would love this card. A 1/4 Tiefling Warlock with Death Touch for 4 mana in Rakdos. Beginning of your end step, exile the top card of your library until end of the next turn. You may play that card, and then on top of that, whenever you play a card from exile, create a treasure token. So now on top of, again, Prosper helping you out, you are getting an additional impulse draw, and by doing that again, you are playing things from exile, and when you do so, you get treasures. So of course, again, any kind of an impulse draw commander, or ones that care about casting things from exile or outside your hand, Count on Luck is great for, in addition to, just a good, solid, mono red, hey, get extra cards kind of strategy. Moving on, Crypt Caller Chariot, a very interesting card. Of course, okay, when it comes to any of these vehicles, it's like, yeah, a vehicle deck could consider it. Most definitely. A 5/5 vehicle with Menace and Crew 2 for 4 mana? Sure. More importantly, though, whenever you discard one or more cards, create that many tap 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. This is a game-ending card for the right strategy. So, obviously, if you've got, like, a self-discard deck, which I would say is a bit more rare than the kind of deck I'm going to bring up, which is Nekusar the Mindrazor with wheels. Yeah, a wheel deck will just go crazy with this. A 2/4 Zombie Wizard for 5 mana in total. in Grixis. At the beginning of each player's draw step, player draws an additional card. When an opponent draws a card, 1 damage to that player. So, of course, you are incentivized to, well, wheel again and again and again. Have players discard their hands, draw cards, discard their hands, draw cards, discard their hands, draw cards. And when you are doing that now, on top of pinging your opponents and punishing them, you're making a giant army of zombies. Again, assuming everyone's got, 7 cards, or you've got 7 cards, because you just wheeled, you wheel again, all of a sudden you're discarding 7, you draw back up to 7, you do it again and again and again, making 14 power across 7 bodies every single time. Yeah, it's a massive way to win the game on top of all of your punishing effects. Moving on, though. Full Throttle. Yeah, this one's pretty obvious as well what decks want it. A Sorcery for 6 mana in red. After this main phase, there are 2 additional combat phases. At the beginning of each combat this turn, untap all creatures that attack this turn. Basically, hey, 2 extra combats. If they just literally had to simplify this into, a couple words, that'd be it. You get 2 extra combats. So, what kind of commander wants that? Well, aggressive commanders, obviously. But, of course, combat trigger commanders like Ishin 2 Heavens is one, of course. Aetheric for Human Samurai for 3 mana in Mardu. If a creature attacking causes a triggered ability of a permanent control to trigger, ability triggers additional time. Basically, again, now all of a sudden you're swinging, you're getting your triggers. Now you get extra combat, you swing, you get triggers again, you swing a second time extra, and there you go. Your triggers a 3rd time on the turn. Yeah, Ishin, oh goodness, is such a popular commander, and really made all those extra combat spells very expensive, and this one probably is going to be as well. Moving on, though, Momentum Breaker, a very interesting card that goes about things in a different way from what we usually see. Enchantment for just 2 mana in black. Start your engine, so cool, that's nice, I guess, but what really matters here is when this enchantment enters, each opponent sacrifices a creature or vehicle of their choice. Each opponent who can't discards a card. So this is a edict effect that is on a permanent that isn't sacrificed. Like, I mean, I guess you can, I should say this. Pay 2, sacrifice enchantment, you gain life, you'll do your speed. So sure, I guess a life gain strategy could utilize it, but also, of course, an enchanter strategy, and yes, even a blink strategy like Atraxa Grand Unifier. 7/7 for Angel for 7 mana in total and a lot of colors. Flying Vigilance, Death Touch, Lifelink, basically ETB. Really top 10 cards in your library. For every single card type, you get one of those into your hand. That can be a lot of value. So again, having different kinds of cards in the deck can really help, and it being an enchantment can help with that. But yes, a commander that can really go heavy into blink, because obviously blinking it equals an absurd amount of card value. And if you have these mass blink effects that can blink multiple permanents, Momentum Breaker can be a great one to keep blinking, because it is a great repeatable edict. And again, unlike some edicts that are on creatures like, say, Fleshbag Marauder, that's usually going to be sacrificed to itself. This one's just like, no. Your opponents are the ones sacrificing things, and if they can't, they discard cards. So it can be a brutally effective thing to blink. Next up, Defend the Rider. Now, just in general, this one is very good for, hey, do you want to protect your commander very cheaply? Like, is it very important that your commander's in play? And, yeah, maybe you got some benefits for casting, instant sorceries, that kind of stuff as well. But when it comes to just a more specific strategy, I guess I should read the card first. Instant for a single green mana, choose 1. Target permanent you control gains hexproof and indestructible until the end of turn. It's like Tameo safekeeping, basically, without the life gain. Create a 1/1 colorless pilot creature token. With this creature, it can saddle and mount crew and 2 more. The whole vehicle thing, right? It can crew things better. Okay, so with this one, obviously, vehicles can utilize it. That being said, when it comes to actually commanders that really want it, they're more so ones that are about target triggers, kind of like this or Ivy, basically. The Howling Abomination, a good example, though. 5/5 Human Beast Warrior with haste for 5 mana in Gruul. It's got trample as long as you've cast 3 or more spells this turn. Again, lowly ground spells are great for that. On top of that, when it becomes the target of a spell, you give it +2/+2 until end of turn and deals 2 damage to each opponent. So again, you're punishing your opponents. You're also gaining some power with it as well. So yeah, again, target matters, commanders. Definitely consider it. Next up, though, Demonic Junker. This thing is brutal. A 4/3 vehicle for 7 mana in total, but you're never going to pay that. Affinity for artifacts. You're probably, looking ahead right now, and you're like, I probably know where this is going for the recommendation for the deck, and what decks are winning by utilizing this. When this vehicle enters, for each player to throw up to 1 target creature that player controls. If a creature you controlled was destroyed this way, put 2 counters on it. Crew 2. Sure, I guess Aristocrat style could consider it because you gain, some benefits for that, but you'd probably want to make sure you have a bunch of artifacts in the deck. So yes, Artifact is where you want to go with this one. Mishra Eminent 1, a 5/4 Human Artificer for 5 mana in Grixis. Beginning of combat on your turn, create a tokenless copy of target non-creature artifact you control, except its name is Mishra's Warforms, a 4/4 construct. There's other types. Hey, sacrifice me an next end step. This one works perfectly with this brand new Demonic Junker because, again, it is a non-creature, just basically without being crewed. So all of a sudden, you're like, okay, I make a copy of it. Oh, great, another ETB to destroy basically 3 creatures. good for me. And maybe even destroy itself for no reason. Why not? No, you're probably going to want to send through in combat. So essentially with this one, again, Demonic Junker can be great, obviously with artifact decks, especially ones like this one that can use and abuse that ETB, and obviously Blink decks that can use and abuse it too. Next up, a Gonosaurus Rex. Now obviously it's a dinosaur, and when you see a good dinosaur decks are like, yay, dinosaur, added the dinosaur to the dinosaur deck. Yes, that. 8/8 trampling dinosaur for 5 mana, but I'm going to bring up a different kind of deck. Cycling for 3 mana, so yeah, cycling can consider it too. When you cycle this card, put 2 counters up to 1 target creature or vehicle, gains indestructible on a turn. A nice little kind of save something pump effect if you need it. That being said, where this can really shine is a Stompy deck. Again, this is an 8/8 for just 5 mana. That is a really good value. And commanders like Gitrog are like, yes please, power, yes, right now. 6/5 Frog, that costs 5 mana. In Golgari, Trample Haste. When it deals combat to a player, you may sacrifice a creature that's saddled this turn. If you do, draw X cards, put X land cards to your hand on the battlefield, tap or X this saddle creature's power, saddle 1. So yes, you want to over saddle the Gitrog, and yeah, having an 8/8 that also is flexible in that it can be a protection spell for you as well, or protection effect, I should say, by cycling it. That can be absolutely huge. So yeah, 8/8 for 5 mana, Stompy decks, love it. Next up, this one is simple but effective. Mer Raceway, a land that has start your engines, tap for a colorless, max speed, tap for 2 colorless. Very simple, very effective. Now, obviously, if you've got like a max speed deck, yeah, obviously this is a very, very good card for it. That being said, if you just in general have a colorless deck, yeah, like Kozilek, the Great Distortion, a lot of colorless commanders out there that are very popular have a very high converted mana cost, because a lot of them are like Eldrazi essentially. That being said, just you have all of the options when it comes to utility lands that are within colorless, because they are basically the exact same thing as a waste, except they're not a basic land, obviously, so there's some implications of that. But that being said, it's not like you have to fix your mana. You don't have to at all. So yeah, having a land that just helps play colorless at the beginning of the game does not matter to you. It's the exact same thing as all your other lands. That being said, this land has the potential to get to 2 mana. And if you've got like a low the ground-ish strategy, you can get there pretty quickly, or just a different kind of... If you get a little creature out, if you get even a Mandork out, you can get some damage out there on your opponents to get them to lose life to get that max speed up. Regardless, once you do get that max speed up, it's just a free extra mana on one of your lands, essentially. So yeah, it's going to be hard to argue against that one in a colorless deck. There's a lot of great utility lands out there, but that can be a great one as well. Next up, Market Back Walker. Yeah, colorless decks can consider this too. That being said, a 0/0 artifact creature construct for XX. Enters with X counters on it. Put a counter on it by paying 4. When it dies, draw a card for each counter on it. This is one that can fit in a decent amount of strategies out there. Definitely like X spell tribal decks out there, or like construct kind of artifact creature decks that are specific in that. +1 counter builds, obviously, as well. That being said, where this can really shine is just proliferate decks. Attracts Praetor's Voice, obviously a good example of that. 4/4 Angel for 4 mana, everything but red. Flying Vigilance, Set Touch, Lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, proliferate. Yeah, just getting free proliferation from this on your end step is great. Obviously, you've got other proliferation effects as well. And essentially with Market Back Walker, you can just literally just pay 2 mana for it, essentially. Again, 1 in each X. Comes out with 1 counter on it. And you just paid 2 mana, and all of a sudden you're just going to be building up counter after counter after counter after counter after counter on it, just, with all your other proliferate effects that you're already going to be having, essentially. And by doing that, you are just adding additional card draw for when that gets taken out, on top of being a good threat when it's in play as well. Next up, Curse Cloth Wrappings, an artifact for 4 mana in black. Zombies you control a +1. Target creature card in your graveyard gains Embalm until end of turn by tapping this. The Embalm cost equal to its mana cost. Yeah, okay, this one is pretty obvious, obviously. Zombie decks. Zombie decks would love this. A great anthem with a, hey, bring things out. I mean, when it comes to, the actual great anthem, it could be lower the ground, but, since you're getting that massive, oh, you can utilize things out of your graveyard, fantastic. Yeah, it's worth the combination. So, one commander that I will bring up, that I'll bring up just for a lot of other cards here all at once, just to kind of make it easier, Verena Lich Queen. Just a general, hey, I can use all the zombie cards, because I'm in all the zombie colors, basically. Red and, I guess red and green maybe have some zombies, but not really. Anyways, 4/4 Zombie Wizard 4 mana in Esper. Whenever you attack with one or more zombies, draw that many cards and discard that many cards. You gain that much life. Pay 2, exile 2 cards in your graveyard, make a tapped 2 black zombie creature token. So this one helps fuel, essentially, the Curse Cloth Wrappings, again, in a couple of ways. Obviously, you can make zombie tokens, which is good, because now they're 3/3s instead of 2/2s. That being said, obviously, the more zombies you attack with, the more cards you're drawing and discarding, getting things in your graveyard, and maybe even some zombies that you can then replay out of your graveyard. Okay, now there's 5 more cards I'm going to bring up, because zombies got a lot of great cards in this set in the precons. Here we go. Accursed Duneyard, of course, is an absurd card that is going to see so much play in zombie decks. decks, and these other tribes too. Tap red colors, pay 2 tap, regenerate target Shade, Skeleton, Spectre, Spirit, Vampire, Wraith, or Zombie. I think this is basically the exact same thing as like Swarm Yard, but that's for like critter creatures essentially. This is like, I don't know, like undead creatures, I guess is probably what it kind of is supposed to be essentially, or dead or undead. Regardless, yeah, any kind of a zombie deck obviously is like, oh yeah, just chuck that in there because, yeah, it's a free way to save my commander or a very important zombie for me. So yeah, there you go. Obviously, other winners are every single one of those tribes for this, or if your commander is just any one of those, essentially. Next up, Lost Monarch of Ifnir, a 4/4 zombie noble for 4 mana in black, afflict 3. Other zombies you draw afflict 3. At the beginning of your second main phase, the player dealt combat damage by a zombie this turn, mill 3. Return a creature card from grave to your hand. Obviously works well with Verena, and obviously all zombie commanders, but Verena especially because you want to go wide with Verena. Makes it really hard to block those creatures effectively, essentially. And yeah, again, if they're dealt damage by zombies, you mill more, you get more things out there, and you can get more things back in your hand. On Wings of Gold, yeah, another anthem for your zombies. An enchantment for 4 mana in white. Creature control that are zombies and our tokens get +1 at flying. That's nice. Where one or more of cards leave your graveyard, create a 1/1 white zombie creature token. Obviously works incredibly well with Verena. I mean, obviously, kind of like any other like token strategy, creature token strategy. Yeah, consider it. That being said, Verena, hey, zombies get +1 flying, a way to get them through. That's huge. On top of that, yeah, you have a way to actually exile cards out of your graveyard with Verena as well. Next up, Prophet of the Scarab, a 3/4 zombie wizard for 5 mana vigilance. Enters draw cards equal to the number of zombies you control or the number of zombie cards in your graveyard, whichever is greater. Yeah, Verena, obviously you can exile things out of your graveyard, including zombie cards, but also at a certain point, you're probably just discarding enough cards that you're like, oh, I've got a ton of zombies in my graveyard. So whether you have more zombies in play or more zombies in your graveyard, you're going to be getting a lot of card draw out of this. Finally, Temet, Noctimon's Will. This is one that you could be like, oh yeah, it works well with that commander, obviously. But works well with this one too. A 4/4 zombie wizard for 5 mana. Vigilance Menace. Whenever you attack, draw a card, discard a card. Whenever you draw a card, zombies you control at +1 until end of turn. Is best friends with Verena, essentially, because, again, Verena's like, hey, attack with all the zombies, draw a lot of cards, discard. Oh, okay, cool. You attack with a bunch of zombies, pump your zombies now all of a sudden. So yeah, that is absolutely huge. Okay. Outside of the zombie cards, here we go. Thunderous Velocipede, probably not a zombie card. 5/5 vehicle trample for 3 mana in green. Each other vehicle and creature you control enters an additional counter on it if its mana value is 4 or less. Otherwise, enters with 3 additional counters on it. It's got crew 3. Again, with any of the vehicles, obviously you could say, oh, it works well in a vehicle deck. Yes. But also, hey, you know what? +1 counter synergies. Any of these kind of like Renata, Call of the Hunt kind of effects. I think that's the name. Renata, Caller of the Hunt, something like that. Basically, any of these like, hey, creatures come into play, they get a counter on them. There are certain commanders out there like, yes, that. All of those, essentially. Every single one of those, please. 3/3 Angel Elf with Flying and Vigilance. Shalai and Halar, very broken commander for 4 mana in Naya. Whenever one or more counters are put on a creature control, Schlienhard deal that much damage to target opponent. Okay, so again, if it's a small creature, you get 1 counter, all of a sudden, that's 1 damage to an opponent. Nice, lovely, awesome, cool. But if it's a bigger creature, all of a sudden you get 3 counters and you're lightning bolting things in the face just for them coming into play. So yeah, +1 counter synergies, and of course, kind of with that too, like, you just want to start off as a base with getting at least 1 counter on your creatures with a Schlienhard Halar deck, or just counter synergies in general, because if you proliferate then you get 1 for each one, which is huge. Next up, though, Banasri, Tomorrow's Champion, obviously can be a commander itself, but that being said, I think it's more of a player in the 99, and yeah, huge player at that. 2/1 Human Knight for a single white mana. Pay a single white mana, tap Exert it, make a 1/1 cat creature with lifelink. Though you can cycle away for 3, and when you do, cat you control gain hexproof and destructible on turn. That is massive, obviously, for, well, changeling decks, but also cat decks. Yeah, obviously. This is basically a heroic intervention in white for cat decks, specifically a 5/5 cat avatar. A Rabo Roll the World is like, yes, please, get that in the deck. For 5 mana in Selesnya. At the beginning of combat your turn, if it's on the command zone of the battlefield, +0 to a cat. Whenever cat you control attacks, you can pay 3 mana. If you do trample, +X to X its power. Very good as a cat commander. There's also other ones out there as well. I mean, Rin Seri is an amazing one. That one can be built in like dog or cat, or just one or the other. So obviously, yeah, consider that too. But yeah, being able to just like have a heroic intervention that saves your entire team for an extra mana, but you're also drawing a card, that is massive. Next up, Stride Hanger Automaton, a 1/4 construct for 3 mana. Thought Bridge control +1. One of our artifact tokens we create or control, those tokens plus additional token are created instead. Oh, sorry, by additional token, I mean 1/1 colors Thopter artifact creature with flying. Yeah, so basically, you're making a bunch of Thopters, and those Thopters are 2/2s. So obviously, if you have any kind of a strategy that is about making artifact tokens, it's a huge card for that because it makes you even more artifact tokens, which is great for so many things with that, but also those artifact tokens are decently deadly, being 2/2 evasive creatures as well. When you go super wide with that, it's going to be hard to stop. Mr. House and President, CEO is just a good example of that as well. For a commander that might want to consider it, artifact token or treasure commander is one that you probably want to consider this brand new card. 0/4 ledger artifact creature human for 3 mana and Mardu. Whenever you roll a 4 or higher, create a 3/3 colorless robot artifact creature token. If you roll a 6 or high instead, create that token plus a treasure token. You can also pay to roll dice and make treasures. Or, make, additional 6-sided die for each treasure, I should say. Okay, I should have read the whole card. Regardless, being able to either just make that robot or making that treasure, either way you are getting that thought for this. And of course, there's plenty other ways to make treasure with this commander or artifact creatures too. Next up, though, Aetheric Amplifier. This is a very interesting card. And again, Wizards is finally learning that, when you make mana rocks that cost 3 and they're not the most efficient, again, which players want efficient mana rocks, but if you make a non-efficient mana rock, it better be good. It better do something that is unique and something that decks actually want. And there are some decks out there that have been just needing something like this for such a long time. They finally have it. Artifact for 3, tap for 1 mana of any color, pay 4, tap, choose 1, activate on a sorcery, double the number of each kind of counter on target permanent, or double the number of each kind of counter you have. Which, of course, includes experience counters. Yeah, Azlask, the Swelling Scourge. If you have a commander deck out there that's built around, like, all the experience counter commanders, which I just built one on Joda, make sure you check that out. Or if you've got a commander that specifically is just, mentioning experience counters themselves. This is a really good, just slightly inefficient mana rock, but an amazing way to double up your experience counters. That's huge. 2/2 Eldrazi for 3 mana. Whenever it or another colorless creature you control dies, you get an experience counter. By paying Wooburg, creatures you control get +X/+X until after X the number of experience counters you have. Signs and spawns you control gain Indestructible Annihilator 1 till end turn. That stacks. I will say that. So if you keep activating that, that's more than 1 Annihilator 1 trigger, which is massive. But yeah, being able to just be like, oh, okay, a couple of my colorless creatures have died, but now I can just double it up by paying my mana for this artifact to tap and double it up. And then next turn do the same thing. And all of a sudden my creature's absolutely massive. Moving on. Renewed Solidarity. Enchantment for 3 mana in white. Enters, choose a creature type. Creatures control the chosen type get +1/+0. So a nice little anthem there. That being said, beginning of your end step for each token you control the chosen type that entered this turn, create tokens a copy of it. So if you have, again, a certain tribe out there that you have a deck built around, it's got a good amount of ways to make creature tokens, and it's in white, great. I mean, Cranko decks are like, no, why not red? But still, yeah, if you have any kind of commander that does that, great. Or if you just have a commander in general that makes a ton of tokens like the Lease Reverent Medium, even if it's not, again, like a Spirit tribal deck, which usually they are not around the Lease, a 3/4 Human Cleric for 5 mana in total in Orzhov. Beginning of each ends up, create X 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying, where X the number of tokens you create this turn. Even though most decks, I think almost all decks, aren't just like spirit tribal around this, it's essentially just like make a bunch of tokens. You still are like, oh, okay, I double up my spirits, which my commander is basically making because I'm making a bunch of other things, already doubling my tokens. So you're making an absurd amount of tokens with this in addition. So again, if your commander's got any kind of a way to give you more, get more with this. Next up, Adaptive Omni Tool, an equipment for 2 mana. Equip creature gets ++1 for each artifact you control. Whenever equip creature attacks, leave the top 6 cards of your library, reveal an artifact card from among them, put in your hand, rest bomb your library in random order. This is very good, obviously, in artifact decks if you go wide, treasure decks as well. That being said, of course, equipment decks is really where this thing can shine. 5/5 Human Knight for 6 mana in total in Mardu. Sir Gwyn, Hero of Ashbale. Vigilance Menace. I guess if you combine those two. Like Flample, right? Whenever an equipped creature you control attacks, you draw a card, lose 1 life. Equip when you control, have Equipped Knight for 0. Being able to, again, skip on equip cost for your commander is huge. Just being like, oh, okay, cool. I'm not paying that 3 for Adaptive Omni Tool. I'm just putting it right onto my commander. And again, if you have a lot of other equipment in play, which you will, that's a massive pump effect for just 2 mana in total, which can be absolutely huge. Speaking of huge, Rampaging Aetherhood. Oh my goodness. 4/4 Snake Hydra for 5 mana in total, Trample Ward 2. Beginning of your upkeep, you get an amount of energy equal to this creature's power. Then you may pay 1 or more energy if you do put that many counters on this creature. Basically, it is a Build-A-Bear. It just like starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger and gets huge on its own. You just keep it in play and you're like, oh yeah, get absolutely massive. Obviously, energy decks consider it. +1 counter decks as well. Stompy decks too. That being said, where this really does shine, obviously, is, well, Hydra decks, especially Gargos Vicious Watcher. 8/7 Hydra for 6 mana in total. Vigilance. Hydra spells you cast cost 4 less to cast. Whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell, Gargos fights up to one creature you don't control. Yeah, this brand new Hydra, again, costs 4 and a green, meaning with Gargos, it is a single green mana for a 4/4 trampling ward 2 creature that just grows and basically doubles every single turn. Yeah, that can be quite massive for this and for other decks too. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. Comment below with your thoughts on it. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.